Once you have downloaded, please let me know in the chat. Okay. Those who have joined late, we are downloading. We're downloading stuff. So let me just share the link again. So we can give like 5 minutes for Pod to download. Once you've done, please let me know in the chat. Thank you for the feedback, Gladys, Viola, and Rose. So let's wait for a few more. If you're here, you're late, and you came late, please let us know. I don't know if there is no way for me to know if someone was not here. Okay, so can we have someone Share the screen, please, so that you can go through the setup and installation. Someone who has downloaded Python, please share your screen so that you can install. Please go ahead, Viola.
I've there it's this one and this one, though I haven't clicked to install or anything.
And that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
So click on the Python 3.8. Yes, that one. Okay, so the most important step for everyone is make sure the add Python 3 point something to path is ticked. Yes, everyone, please. That's a very important step. Um, that if you don't do that, you'll have to uninstall and install again. Make sure you've ticked add Python 3 points to path when you're setting up. And okay, then now you can click on install now. Okay, awesome. So you can close. Mhm. And then you see where there's type here to search. Yes, search for Python. Yes, then click on, okay, that's okay. Okay, so everyone please make sure you are here. You've searched and you've gotten this blackish screen. So I'll give everyone 5 minutes to confirm in the chat that they're here and we can get started. Also for Visual Studio, you can just click on it, or click on the download. You have to click on the download first. Yep, that one, yes. Once I just run. Next. Next. You can decide to create a desktop icon if you want. You can just continue next. And install. Awesome, you can finish.
I leave it to launch and finish.
Now you can just untick that, then just finish. Awesome. The rest, please. Awesome. Thank you, Margaret, for the feedback. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Hazel. Great. Thank you for the feedback. Anyone who is stuck before we kick off? Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to share my screen. so that we can get started. I hope you can all see the font well. So what we have opened is what we call the Python interpreter. Python is an interpreted language, meaning that unlike other languages where you write code, then you have to compile, then wait for it to compile, then run. Python allows you to write code and run and get results as fast as possible. The other thing is most people attribute Python to be readable compared to other languages where you can get a number of syntax. You can get verbose in terms of curly braces, semicolon, and all that. Python does not have that. And Python is widely used in the different areas. One of the advantages of Python is that it's a general purpose language, meaning that you can apply Python in web application development, you can apply it in the mathematical industry, you can apply it in engineering with the matplotlib, you can apply it in data science, you can apply it in a number of areas. That advantage is it has a huge community. The community meaning there's a huge of lot of open source libraries you can use for free for your projects, and a number of companies using Python is Mozilla. Facebook uses Python within to run its infrastructure. Instagram, the backend for Instagram, the web application, the web servers are written in Python. We have a lot of people in the math community using Python. A lot of science, data science is using a lot of Python. So there's a huge community, and if you're looking for work, it's one of the highly employable careers, skills that you might have. So we're going to learn the basics for maybe 1 or 2 weeks. And then we're going to do some web development. So we're going to combine the HTML, CSS you've learned, and we're going to learn how to create web applications where you can probably save stuff. People can sign in, you can sign out, and all that. So that's what we're going to do. So today we're going to do to go through some basics, and we're going to do it in this interpreter. These greater than sign, three greater than signs are an indicator of the beginning of the interpreter. And here you can get the version, so you can have different versions. I believe some might have installed Python 3.9. That's okay. So for me, my screen is white so that it's more visible, but I can change the color. So there's no big difference between yours and mine. The only difference is that that we are running it on Windows while I'm running it on Mac OS, which is okay. So the first thing with any programming languages is to understand the syntax of the language. The syntax is usually the rules within the language. For example, how do you write a string? How do you write numbers? All that. And with Python, for example, the number of data structures we're going to look at, strings, integers, lists, dictionaries. So we can easily get started by looking at how we can play with numbers for you. For example, you can use the interpreter as a calculator. So I hope you're following. While I do, you also do it on your machine. That's why it's easier to catch up. So for example, I can multiply 45 by 12. So you use the asterisk as the multiplication sign. The other thing I can do is I can do addition. I can do division. I can do subtraction. So this is a number in Python. Python understands this as a number. So the other thing we're going to look at is strings. So strings are usually characters of, it can be either alphabetic mixed with numbers, or it can be purely alphabetical. So for example, this is a string, and strings are usually denoted using the quotation marks. So for example, this is a string, britone, that's a string. This is another string. You can combine the two strings using an addition sign, the plus. You can write, for example, this name 3 times, this string 3 times using the multiplication sign. Okay. So you can combine, for example, maybe you want space, you can put space like that. Space is a string, you can present as a string like that. So you have properly displayed string with spacing. So that's a string. So what happens if I do that plus that? I'll get an error. An error that says type error can only concatenate a string and not an integer. Concatenation is the combination of two strings, like what we did here, using the plus sign. So in this case, Python is saying you cannot do this to a string plus an integer. You can only do this to as two strings. So the important thing is to understand the errors in Python. This error simply points us to line number one. Line number one being this single line that we have only one line, and it's telling us we have a type error, can only concatenate str, usually is a string, not int. Int is integer to string. So it says you can only concatenate a string to a string and not to an integer. Okay. So to execute my commands, I press and enter after that. So I press and enter, then I get the results. I hope that's clear. So then there's in programming, there's something called a method. So a method is really just a collection of, a sequence of instructions performed to an object. So for example, if I say this is my full name, I can use a method using a dot, adding a dot, then upper. There's a method called upper that allows me to convert this string into all caps. So Python has a method that you can apply to string. You can apply to a string that allows me to convert this string into all uppercase. And then you can also do lowercase, convert it to lowercase. And then there's so this function is called upper. It's inbuilt within the programming language, in that it comes with the language. So we don't have to define the instructions for what this method does. So the number of them, so for example, there's another one called len. Len simply allows me to get the length of something. So the length of that string is 7. So you might ask, what's the difference between this this kind of where we are using a dot, and then the name of the method, and why are we starting with this, the len? So the difference is that in Python, methods can be applied to maybe specific objects, can be applied to specific objects, but with the dot, with the dot and the name of the method. But then we have instructions that can be applied to a different array of data objects, in the sense that, so for example, like 22, this number, I can't convert it to upper because it's a string. It's a number, not a string. So for example, you find that methods like upper can only be applied to maybe a string. So that's why they usually denoted like this, with a dot, then the name of the method. But for this len, you can apply it to strings, and the next data type we're going to look at lists. So len can be applied to a number of things. So this kind of error is called a syntax error, in that it's against the rules of the language. So we get an invalid syntax. Okay, so maybe we can summarize what you have learned right now. So we have looked at this prompt, the Python interpreter. We have said this denotes the beginning of the interpreter. And the other thing is, you have looked at these numbers and strings. We have looked at these numbers, 3 plus that. We have looked at strings. We have said strings are characters that can be both letters, the special alphanumeric, can be alphanumeric characters, as long as they're put within the quotation marks. We have looked at operators like the plus sign, the multiplication operator, that we can apply to numbers. Then you have looked at we've looked at functions like the upper and the len that can be performed on different objects. Do we have a question so far? Anyone with a question? Now, okay, so why does it say there's an error on line 1, yet there are many lines above it? Okay, so when you are running it in the interpreter, you see this this 3 greater than sign. This denotes a new line on the interpreter. So on this Python interpreter, this denotes the beginning of the first line. So this is line 1. When you're running it inside the interpreter. So what happens is, whatever is above that is ignored. Whatever is above this 3 greater than sign is ignored and not interpreted as a new line. Okay. I've said strings are anything within put within a quote like this. This is a string. We can get the length of that string using a function called len. You can get the length of that like this, right? And then we have said you can convert them into different cases. So for this, I can convert to upper, meaning it becomes capital. Then you'll notice I'm trying to avoid usage of single quotes. This is why you can have a string that says, for example, Brighton's. Let me see. I can have a string that says Brighton's car was stolen, right? So that is a string, right? But when I do that, it gives me an error. It gives me an error because Python is trying to understand this string you're given to it. What it happens is, when it sees this first quotation, then it sees the next quotation. It assumes this is the beginning and the end of a string. So now when you introduce the S, it's now the Python does not understand what's happening. So it appears as an invalid syntax, because if you want to still continue with this, with apostrophe, you have to, you can use the double, you can use, it's important to use the double quotation. So what I mean is by this, right? So when you do that, there's no problem. But you can still use the what do you call it? The single apostrophe, but then you remember to put the, you have to put the slash. So where there's going to be another single quote that does not denote the end of a string, you have put that. But then this can become cumbersome, and you might forget about it. So it's always good by default to put strings to have double quotes. Okay, so I hope that's okay, Sheila. Okay, any other question? Okay, so who can tell me what will happen when I try to run this? Who can tell me what is going to happen when I try to run this? You do not have to guess. Just try it on your machine and tell me what you're seeing. It won't run. What is it saying? It gives an error. What's the error? What's the error? Object int has no len. Object of type int has no len. Okay. Yes. So that's the error. It tells you type error. It's a type error in that object of int has no len. So it means you cannot find the len of an integer. Okay. Fantastic. So anyone who can suggest how we can get the len of this integer? Can someone suggest how we can get the len of this integer? Put the quotations. Okay, let's do that. Len with the quotations. Okay, tells us 5. Grace has suggested we put a quotation. Another suggestion? It is reading it as a string. Yes. It's reading it as a string, but has it given us the length? Is the length correct? Okay. So Grace is right in the sense that when you put the quotation, we are converting it into string, and then after it's converted into string, then it's getting the length of the string. So the other way you can do it is you can say there's a function called str that allows you to convert a number to a string like that. Then you close the brackets. Always remember to close the brackets. Then you hit enter, it gives you that. So the string you put in the quotation is an easy way of converting it to a string, but it's always better to use the function string str, because you might not know the length of a string to be able to just put the quotations there. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at is variables. Variables in programming are just what was it saying? Count. Okay, what do you mean by count? Count like this. How do you mean by count? Where is count coming from?
Hi, Brighton. I think I read somewhere. I think it is JS, if I'm not wrong. Thank you.
No, okay, so that might be a different language. So the thing is, different languages might have different ways of interpreting the same, of doing the same thing. Yeah. So in this case, count, you get a name error. A name error are usually, for example, mostly cases where you're trying to, for example, call, in this case, you're calling a function called count that we have not created or defined, or it's not even inbuilt within the Python language. So we get a name error. So the other reason we can get a name error is the next concept we're looking at, variables. So variables are just names that you can use, so that you can use, for example, later to store. You use it to store value that then you can use later in a programming language. So, for example, I can say name is equals to Python. Okay. So on my left side, name is a variable name. Then the value I'm giving that variable is Brighton, which is a string, right? So when I hit enter and then I say name, give me that, it gives me the name. So print the name, it gives me the name. So that's how you create a variable. So for that is for strings. For numbers, you do that. So you can print num. That's how you use variables. So you can get them like we did with strings. You can get the name, the length of a variable, right? Like that. And then so variables values change. So for example, we can start with num1 is equals to 22. Say num2 is equals to 12, like that. And then we can say we can apply the numeric the operators we use, the multiplication, addition. We can apply to our variables. Uh, we can change the variable value. So you can say num1 is equals to num1 times 12. So num1, the value changes. Should have used a different. Yeah, so you print num1, you get the value for num1, variable num1 has changed. So variables, the values change. So the number of rules how you can name your variables. The only rule probably is that avoid using keywords that are already within the language Python. So for example, you can't create a variable and call it len, because len is an inbuilt keyword within the Python language. So those are the things you need to be careful of. So for example, if I'm trying to create a variable called first name, so first name, those are two different what do you call it, strings. So I can put them together using an underscore. In Python, you always advisable to use an underscore like that. I know other languages you do that. First, then you say for the second name you put the capital N. But in Python, um, kind of the advice is to use an underscore instead of using the capital N. So I can say second name is equals to that. I can then concatenate the two plus second name like that. Anyone with a question? Yes. Python is case sensitive. Case sensitive means if my variable is second name with a small m, if I use a capital M, those are two different things, right? So I'm getting a name error because it's trying to find if there's a variable called second name, it hasn't found it. So it says that the name, second name has not been defined. So it's very case sensitive. You have to be very cautious with the names that you give to your variables. Any other question? Okay, so we have looked at strings, or looked at integers, variables. So the other thing we can look at is lists. Lists are exactly what it sounds like, just a list of objects put together. So you create a list in Python using these, the squared brackets. That creates for us an empty list. So for example, you can say fruits. I'm trying to create a list with the name fruits. So I'm creating with the variable fruits. So then I can say put in there my strings, for example, then separate them with comma. So for example, my first fruit is the apple, and then the mangoes, second fruit, right? Put a comma to add another item. So I can say like that. So I have a list called fruits. So that's how you easily create a list. List usually separated by commas, and you have to put a square bracket. So for example, I can say my numbers is equals to that, 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 and that. So that means I've created a list of numbers like that. So it's how you easily create a list in Python. Okay, so like we did with strings, you can get the length of a list. So you can get the length of a fruit list. You can get the length of our numbers, like that. So we can get the length of those lists. So the other thing we can also get, you can use the method, there's a method called sort that allows us to sort our list. So now our list is sorted from 14, 23, 78 to 343. So we have sorted our list like that. So now that's how our list currently looks like. The other thing is we can reverse our list using a method called reverse, like that. Now when you print numbers, we have now reversed it from 343 to 78, 23, and 14. Okay. So then the other thing is we can add items to our list. So our fruits looks like that. So I can add another fruit to the list. So I can use there's a method called append. So fruits dot append. Then in brackets, what do I want to append? I can say oranges, like that. So I'm appending oranges to my list. So now my list of fruits look like that. So Rose is asking, can alphabets be sorted? The easy way to answer this is trying. So as you can see, the language is saying string object has no attribute sort. There are other ways of sorting a list, but then that can get, you have to create a custom function for you to do that. So that can get complicated, and we'll look at that later, how to create functions later. So as you can see, the difference between the functions and methods, in the sense that len can be applied to numbers and strings, but methods like sort can only be applied to a string, can be applied to a string or a list. So methods are usually specific to specific objects. Okay. We have our list of numbers like that. So we can also append to this list of numbers. So append. So append adds an item to the end of the list. So when you look at the list, we now have added another 343. Poor example. So let me just use a different number. So now our numbers look like that. You simply use the .append method, and then within it, you give it the number you want to append to our list. Okay, so apart from appending, you can remove an item or delete. To do that, use method called pop, like that. So this will remove our last item. So you look at numbers, that number has been deleted, right? So now .pop removes the last one, but then you can be specific about what you want to remove. .pop, then pop within it. Let's say I want to pop number 14. Sorry. Now, okay. To do this, you need to use indexing. and that's something I haven't shown you. So indexes are, in programming, indexing is the position of an item with respect, for example, to this list. For example, what's the position of 343 in this list? What's the position of 14 in this list? So indexing, you'll note that in programming, indexes starts from 0, not 1. So our index 0 in this numbers list is 343. Index 1 is 78. So when I say numbers, numbers, so to get the index, use the square brackets. So for me to get the first index, index 1, I'll get 78. To get in the first index, index 0, I get 343. So maybe someone tell me, what will I get? I want index -1. What are we going to get? Index -1. What are we going to get at index -1? What will we get at index -1? Are we together? Are we together, or someone is lost somewhere? Margaret is saying the final value. Anyone else who was tried it? $343. So the question is, which 343? There are two 343. Then this is a wrong example. Okay, but then it's okay. Yeah, so we get 343. So what happens is, if this is 0, index 0, then when you want to go backwards, this is index -1, index -2, -3, -4, -5. So for example, let's say numbers, index -4, it will give me the 78. What happens if I do this? Numbers, index -6. What happens if I do that? Out of range, yes. Yes. So out of range simply means that I've gone beyond the available indexes in this string. So the last index should be index 5. Yeah, index 5. Okay, so in this pop error that I got here, it was because I was I was out of index. So for example, if I say, now if I say numbers.pop 5, I'm also out of range. So if I say 4, I'm not out of range. So now my numbers looks like that. We have removed the last item. Okay, anyone who's lost? Nani amepotea tumtafute? Okay, so silence. I'm going to assume the silence means we are all together. Okay. So we have looked at strings, you have looked at numbers, we have looked at um, lists, numbers, strings. So the next thing you're going to look at is dictionaries. So with lists, we're using that. With dictionaries, you're going to use the curly braces. You're going to use the two curly braces. So that denotes an empty dictionary. So for example, I want to create a dictionary which contains contact details. So for example, my contact pieces, for example. So I'm going to create, so with lists, we're separating them using comma separated. So dictionary is almost the same, but then with dictionaries, there's usually the key and the value. So you create, you give it a key and a value. So for example, I'll create my variable, it's a dictionary, like that. So I'll say now the key is the name, right? So that's the key, and then the value, that's the value, okay? And then I'm going to have another key. So you put the key, name, full colon, then you give it the value for example, Brighton. Then I can say telephone, right? I want to store the telephone. So telephone, then I put the number there, the telephone number there, right? Then I can put another key, email, right? Then I can give it the value um, like that, right? So now I've created a dictionary, right? So this dictionary contains three keys. That is the name, the telephone, tel, and the email. So those are the dictionaries. So if I want to get the value of the dictionary name, that is the name of this contact, I'll just say name like this. I'll get that value. So I can get the email for this person. Then I can get the tel for this person. So those are the values. That's how you get those values. So the difference between arrays, lists and arrays is that in Python, there are no the arrays. The concept looks similar, but in Python, we have lists and not arrays. But the concept is the same. Fixed length, you can get the index, but then this is how you create list in Python. Okay. So like lists, dictionaries, the values can be changed, right? Or you can add a new key value pair. So for example, if it's my contacts, I want to add the address, I can just say address, contacts, :address is equals to Mombasa, like that. So now when I print my contacts, you see that I've added my address there. So with dictionaries, just like lists, you can pop. Right? You can also change, for example, I can change my address. My address has now changed from Mombasa to Nairobi. So you can do that. So you can also pop, like I said. So we no longer have the tail there. So we have popped that also. A dictionary can have lists also. So for example, I can say, what can I have as a list? Let's say work or skills, for example. My key skills can have a list of other different skill sets, like that. So now I have contacts, sorry, spelling error. So now I have a dictionary where one of the keys value is a list, like that. Okay, so that's how you create lists in Python programming. Any question? So we have looked at maybe some things I can note is that an error. Errors in the language are very important for you to know what they mean. So errors are usually because maybe you've made a mistake. So you need to be able to read the error, understand. Variables, we've said, is the name we give to objects. Like you can give it to a string, you can give it to a number, you can give it to lists. We've said list is just a list of objects stored in a particular order, right? And then we've said a dictionary is simply just objects that are stored with keys and values. So the keys here being name, the value being britone, the key being email, the value being b@gmail.com, the key being address, and the value being Nairobi, the key being skills, the value being a list of Python, HTML, and CSS. So it's that. So I'm welcoming some questions. Okay, so silence always means people are okay, comfortable. All right, so with in Python you can compare objects with Python. So for example, I can ask is 90 greater than 34? Right, that's true. I can ask is 12 greater than 9,000? Tells me false, or it's a false. So then I can ask is 190 equal to 23? Tells me it's a false. Is 190 equal to 190? Like that? Tells me it's a false. I can ask is 190 not equal to 190? Like that. Not equal to, you put an exclamation mark, then the equal sign. 190, is 190 not equal to 190? It's a false. Is the length of this greater than the length of that? Right, because it's a false. So I can compare objects like that using the mathematical operators we use: greater than, less than, equals, or equal to. So that one is, for example, like I say, is 123 less than or equal to 2? That's a false. So that's less than or equal to. Is greater than or equal to that? So this is true. So that's how you compare. You can compare objects. So that's you have just learned a new data type called Boolean, true or false. Okay. So now you note that. Please note that everything done in this interpreter disappears once you've closed your program. Everything disappears. So, for example, in my case, I can exit by typing exit, the exit function, like that. So everything is lost. So now the question is, how do you save your work? For either future reference or for long-term programs or huge projects. So how do you save that? So that's where we use a text editor, like Visual Code. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to share my Visual Code. So you're asking 190 not equal to 190. So you're asking why it's giving us a false. But that statement is false.
Yes, why does it say?
Why does it say false?
Yes, and na
Okay,
tunajua ni equal.
yeah. So they're equal, that's why it's saying false. So the question you're asking is, Is 190 not equal to 190? It's a false because they're equal. Sindio?
Mm-hmm.
Is that clear or it's confusing? 190,
Okay,
I know it can get confusing. 190 is equal to 190, right?
mm-hmm.
But then now we asked Python, instead of equal, we said not equal to.
Okay, nimeelewa. I was a little bit confused.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Most people get confused here. It's okay. Yes. Thank you, Rose, for the help. Okay, so I'm going to open my visual code. So let me share that screen. Okay, so this is how I think your visual code looks. If it's not black, it's white. The color doesn't matter. It's for you to choose what color you want. So, okay, let me just close this. So what you're going to do is, okay, I'll need someone to share the screen because different OS this complicates things. So just someone please volunteer to share your screen. If you have Visual Studio Code on your machine, install it. Please share your screen. No one is volunteering to share their screen. Please share your screen, please. Okay, Viola, thank you again for serving us. Please share your screen.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Awesome. Awesome. So now what you're going to do is you're going to create a new folder. So let's go to File. And then so just create, say, new folder, new file, sorry, new file. Yeah, click on that. Okay, and then, okay, disappeared. We can do it again. Okay, then let's save. Save us. Okay, save it. So let's put it somewhere that you remember. So you can maybe create a folder somewhere. Maybe you can create a folder there or on the desktop, wherever you feel you'll remember. Yeah. Then give the file, the folder name. Advisable not to use that kind of, yeah, this. You can say py programming or something. You know? Okay, so you have to yeah, so you have to click on the folder again to open it. Yeah, then save. Let's save our file. So in Python, we save our files with the extension .py. So for this, for example, you can say hello.py. py, yes, then save. Okay, so that's how we save our Python. Then you notice your Visual Code Editor automatically detects that you're using a Python, you're running a Python file. So it gives you suggestions. For example, it's telling you, do you want to install the recommended extensions for Python? So you can say just install. You can click on install. You can install the recommended. So to install the Microsoft Teams Python extension, it's okay. So it will install. So you notice on your left, it's installing the extension. So the extension is important-ish. It helps you with autocomplete. Yeah, so autocomplete, navigation, and all those things. Okay, so while we wait for that, we can just go back to our hello.py file.
How do I do that?
So it's up, it's just there. You see where there's the tabs? No, within the editor. Within, yeah, just above this snake-ish icon. There's hello.py there. Are you seeing that? Yes, there's hello.py there. It's like a tab. Yes, that one, yes. Okay, awesome. So we can, okay, so this is usually just default. So just close all that. You can close that. Then, yeah. So now you can write our code here. So for example, you remember our list of fruits. So just write, let's just create the list here. So just type fruits is equals to, then the squared bracket. And then the first one, you can say, maybe you can give it apples, comma, mangoes, comma. You can, okay, oranges, okay, awesome. Awesome, so now we can go to the next line. Then just print, type print, then in brackets fruits. Awesome. So you can see the editor is kind of trying to autocomplete. So that's the advantage of having install the Python extensions. So save that. Awesome. So now the number of ways you can run your Python files. So this is just basically what a Python file is made up of. So what you remember, just remember to always save with extension.py. So now with Visual Studio Code, there are a number of ways you can run this. So you see at the top right, there's a green button. It's like a play, yes. So you click on that, which will open an interpreter down there, the terminal down there. So what's happening is it will run, as you can see, it has run our file, then it has printed for us our list. So that's one example of how you can run your Python file from there. You can close that. The other example is you can click on terminal on the menu bar up there. There's terminal. Yes, then you can say new terminal. Yeah. What will happen is Visual Studio Code will open for you a new terminal. But then you need to remember is where did we save our work? Where did we save our work? I don't even remember. Or it was a folder called PyProgram, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So now, yeah. So if you're in the terminal, Now what you need to do is we need to get into that folder. So we do this in Windows using a command called cd. Cd stands for change directory, then cd, then space, then the name of the directory we want to change to. So in this case, it's py program. The P is capital, remember? Also, the first P was capital. Space, capital PY, program. Now the program was single M, right? Just to be exact, yes. So now hit enter. So now what it does, it has changed our directory into that folder. So you can confirm that our file is there by typing the command dir. Dir just simply lists that directory, then hit enter. So you can see we have that file hello.py there. It was last written at that time, that date. So that's the name of our file. So we can run it. Simply, we can run a Python file by typing Python, then space, Python space, hello.py, and hit enter. Okay. So we have that's how we easily run our Python files. So now in this case, this file has been saved on a machine. So once we close our machines, everything remains. So for the other case, the terminal, everything has disappeared. Disappears once you've closed that terminal. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a link of where you can get, you can go through what we have learned today with free time, apart from the video that will be uploaded. It's usually at the official Python documentation website. The official documentation website is here. There's a link I've sent in the group. So that's usually where the official documentation is. So in your free time, you can decide to go through that. Maybe expound on strings because there's so much we haven't looked at. Yep. So if you have a question, please let me know. Okay, so no question. I'm going to assume everyone is okay, but I've noted some people were very quiet. They're not responding in the chat, so hopefully they're okay. It's awesome. Thank you, Margaret, for the feedback. Awesome. So I think we can call that the end of our session for today. Hopefully you learned something, and please practice, practice, practice. That's the only way you get better at these things.